Aloha! Thank you for joining us here at truthmadeeasy.com as we continue with our Apologetics Made Easy video training course. The title for this video is The Moral Law Argument, one of the arguments used to prove the existence of God. We are continuing through our 5 points here in our 5-point hand illustration. Point 1, God exists. 2, miracles are possible. 3, the New Testament is a good history book. 4, Jesus is God. And 5, the Bible is the Word of God. We're presently on point 1, proving God's existence. I remind you once again that you can learn more about these arguments from our text, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist by Norman Geisler and Frank Turek. In it, we have our 3 arguments for the existence of God. We have already finished the first 2 arguments, the cosmological argument and the teleological argument. The cosmological argument simplified: the universe had a beginning, so it had to have a beginner. The teleological argument simplified: the universe and life exhibit precise design, so they had to have a designer. In this video, we'll be covering the last and final argument, the moral law argument, which can be simplified to say that since we all have a moral law within us, some call it conscience, which helps us to know right from wrong, since we have this moral law within us, someone must have put it there. There must be a moral lawgiver. The formal argument is laid out this way. Number 1, every law has a lawgiver. 2, there is a moral law. And 3, the conclusion, therefore there is a moral lawgiver. Now, have you ever been a part of a conversation where people were discussing what's important in life? If you have, you may have heard people saying things like being good, doing good things, or helping others. And these are all good answers, aren't they? For most people know instinctively that we should be good, do good, and help others. But where did we get this notion to be good and to do good? We got it from the moral law within our heart. When you see these images here of Adolf Hitler, the swastika, and the rubble remains from the Nazi war machine in World War II, what's your immediate impression? Do you think that Hitler was good or bad? You would likely say he was bad. How about when you see the images here of Mother Teresa, who helped so many of the poor and suffering in India? Would you say that she was good or bad? You'd probably say she was good. And if you were to take a survey of 100 people, they would likely agree with you and say that Hitler was bad and Mother Teresa was good. And yet, as hard as it is to believe, not everyone would agree. There would still be some that would say that, but Hitler was good and Mother Teresa was bad. So, was Hitler good or was he bad? We have different opinions here, don't we? Well, without an objective standard, no one can really say that Hitler was good or bad, because it would be nothing more than their own personal opinion. Let me explain further. Here we have 2 gray lines. Which of the 2 is the straight line? Neither, you say? How do you know that? You know that because you know what a straight line looks like. The point is, we can't know something is crooked unless we know it is straight. The red line here is straight. And how do we know that? By comparing the line alongside a straight ruler. The ruler is an objective standard that we can look to when determining if a line is crooked or straight. Comparing the gray lines on the left with the ruler, we know that the gray lines are crooked. Now, you may be saying to yourself about now, that's great and all about the lines, but what do crooked and straight lines have to do with the moral law? Good question. Just as we can't know something is crooked unless we know what is straight, we can't know something is wrong unless we know what is right. Just as the ruler can help us to know what is straight and what is crooked, the ruler in our heart, the moral law, or what some call conscience, can help us to know what is right and what is wrong. Now the big question is, how did this moral ruler get there in our heart? Who put it there? The moral lawgiver put it there. That's who. Now, you may be familiar with C.S. Lewis, the author of the Chronicles of Narnia and other books. He commented on this moral law within his own heart in his book, Mere Christianity. In it, C.S. Lewis reflects back to how he used to think when he was still an atheist. We read, "My argument against God was that the universe seems so cruel and unjust. But how had I got this idea of just and unjust? A man does not call a line crooked unless he has some idea of a straight line. What was I comparing this universe with when I called it unjust. Now, how did C.S. Lewis come to the conclusion that the universe was cruel and unjust? From the moral law within his heart. When he compared what he saw around him with what his heart knew to be just, he saw the universe as being unjust. In the same way, when we compare the actions of Hitler and Mother Teresa against the moral law in our hearts, we naturally conclude that the actions of Hitler were bad, while the actions of Mother Teresa were good. Using our analogy of the lines, we would say that Hitler's actions were crooked and Mother Teresa's were pretty straight. She wasn't perfect, of course, she was still human, but her actions, the gold line there, were far closer to the red, straight line of the moral law. You know, one of the best proofs of the moral law, that we really do know right from wrong, is our reactions to the bad behavior of others. Some think it's okay to lie, steal, or treat others badly. Well, that is until someone treats them badly. Someone may not think that their own behavior is bad, but when they're on the receiving end of that same bad behavior, they quickly realize just how wrong it is. It's true. We do know right from wrong best by our reactions than we do by our actions. As we conclude this video and our study of the moral law argument, let's quickly review our earlier slide to see if each of these 3 points are true. Number 1 tells us that every law has a lawgiver. Well, this is a pretty well accepted fact, so we'll check that one off. How about number 2? There is a moral law. Well, based on what we have learned in this video, we can check that one off as well. So with both number 1 and number 2 both checked off, the conclusion number 3 is also true. Therefore, there is a moral lawgiver. But exactly who is this moral lawgiver? Well, we're going to answer that question in our next video, where we'll discover not only the identity of the lawgiver of the moral law argument, but the beginner of the cosmological argument and the designer of the teleological argument as well. And that's next in our video, revealing the identity of the beginner, designer, and moral lawgiver.